You're selfish. Relationships are not designed for selfish individuals. Don't be so selfish. Anybody else have a little bit of a flashback to high school? I had a little bit of one. You know, these words, this word selfish, it's made to elicit this negative connotation for us, this guilt that comes with that word selfish. And we all know that, and we know it even more, especially when there's a hand on the hip and a little bit of a finger waggle. We know for sure that something isn't right. You know, I want to challenge you today. I want to reframe what your view of the word selfish is today. I want to push some of those boundaries a little bit. I want you to think about these words: love, joy, peace, and happiness. These words sound good, they feel good, and there's no negative connotation with it whatsoever. However, if you think about the root of these words, it's how we feel. And there's nothing more selfish than how we feel. So why do we get all caught up in the negative societal stigma around that word selfish? Because it's all about how we feel. I'm gonna just do this. Hey, I got a timer now too. That's awesome. That 15 seconds. So it's good. But we get caught up in how we feel when somebody tells us we're being selfish. Think about that one line: relationships are not designed for selfish individuals. So what does that mean? If I'm in a relationship, somebody else has to make me happy, and I have to make somebody else happy? And then if I'm happy in some other way that's not right? Really? Really? That doesn't make any sense at all. And if you think about when somebody says you're being selfish, all that means is that you're doing something that you want to do, but they don't want you to do. It is crap. But we get caught up in that negative connotation. And I want you to think about the world right now. The American Psychological Association says that 80% of all people feel stress, moderate or high levels of stress on a regular basis. And the American Institute of Stress, so much stress we had to create an institute. Really? See, I have to incorporate really now all the time. But so much stress that we had to create an institute. They say 80% of all employees experience stress on the job, and nearly 50% of them don't know how to manage it. So where do you fall? Are you in that 50% of that group where stress has that hold on you, has a grip on you, and you don't know how to manage it? Do you feel just caught up in that stress every day? Or are you in that other group? That other group where there's stress around you, but it's no big deal. You have the tools to manage it. You go to work and you feel engaged, you feel inspired, you feel like you're making a difference. You know, I'm somewhere in between. You know, there's days where I feel that pull of stress, and I feel it just grip on me. And then there's other days where it's not a big deal. And what I've noticed is the difference between those 2 days is what goes on in my head. It's that negative voice in my head. Anybody else have that negative voice in your head? I'm gonna assume you're all nodding yes, because I can't see you. It's just gonna make me feel better because mine is going on in my head. And it's that voice that says, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not doing enough, you're not funny enough, and you know what? Everybody might have actually left the audience right now because you're not enough. You know, I've had that voice for so long. I don't even remember where it came from. What I know is that voice is bullshit. That voice is what holds us back. Think about that voice when it's negative for you. Where has it held you back? Where has you held you back from meeting somebody that might be interesting to talk to? Has it held you back from even going to the party? Has it held you back from applying for that job that you really want, but you just didn't do it because that negative voice kept you there? What I know is that this negative voice in our head, that voice is the source of our stress, and it is the root of our symptoms, and that voice shapes the way we feel and what we think about ourselves. And this is what I believe we need to change. This is what I believe we need to get selfish about, because it's this voice that holds us back from having the impact in our lives that we deserve. You know, when I think about this voice and how many times it's held me back, I can feel that stress starting to rise, starting to come up. And I found a solution to that stress. The solution was completely by accident. You know, there were years where I tried to silence this voice, where I tried to pretend it didn't exist, and that didn't work. And there were times when I, being somebody who wants everybody to like me, which is that voice again, I invited that voice in, made it tea, made that voice feel comfortable, even gave that voice my side of the bed. That didn't work either. When we acknowledge that voice, that's what makes the difference. When I ignored the voice, it got louder and louder. And I still tried to ignore it, but it got so loud that it leapt out of my head and it landed on my body. It landed on my arms, my sides, my legs, and even the top of my feet. That voice transformed into a rash that covered my whole entire body for 2 years. And I tried everything. I tried creams, I tried lotions, I tried biofeedback, I tried Reiki, I tried massage, I tried access bars, I tried body talk. I even tried to soak in an enclosed capsule full of salt, and nothing worked. All of those things gave me temporary relief from my stress, from my rash, but nothing gave me permanent relief. They say right now that stress is a $300 billion annual cost in the US alone. What we are doing is not working. That's the cost of treatments, it's the cost of sick time, it's the cost of employee turnover, it's the cost of workers' comp. What we're doing is not working. We need to find a different solution. Like I said, I found that solution by accident. It's only something that makes sense when I look backwards. There was one day where I took my 2 dogs. I have a little chocolate lab. Well, he's 85 pounds. He's not really all that little. And a blondie. And we started going across the road to go into the field. And we also have a cat at home. And my husband doesn't like when I talk about the cat because he thinks I might be a bit crazy and that voice in my head might be, on The Simpsons, that crazy cat lady who throws the cats out? I think he thinks of our cat like that. She's kind of part dog, so she comes along with us. And the 4 of us walk down this little deer path, down a valley and to a top of a hill. And I sat in the middle of this field on the top of the hill. And the dogs, they went running around. I'm pretty sure there was rabbit poop somewhere that they wanted to get into, and they found that. And I just sat there, and I watched the sunset. And I watched the sun go from this brilliant yellow to these deep oranges, and finally set in these just beautiful pastel pinks. And it took my breath away. I'd never actually watched a sunset before. I've seen lots of sunsets, but I never actually watched it. And then I wanted to go every night. And so for 2 weeks, the 4 of us made our little trek into the middle of that field, and we would watch the sunset every night for 2 weeks. And what I found is that quality of voice started to change. That voice in my head started to be more positive. I started to be grateful for things that were in my life, proud of things that I did in my day, and even looking positively towards the future. And once I realized that this voice in my head started to change and that my symptoms of rash started to go away, I started to get selfish. I started to claim that time for my own. I started to want to do this every day because I started to feel better about me and feel better about my worthiness. My question for you is, what's your rash? What is that voice holding you back from doing? What are the symptoms that come up for you? Do you fight with your spouse? Do you yell at your kids in the middle of a grocery store? Do you maybe have debilitating headaches that last for days? Maybe sometimes it's just a struggle to get out of bed. Or maybe it's showing up for you in a way that you just know isn't good for your body, for your relationships, or isn't good for your bank account. Because we all have a rash. Mine just happened to be an actual rash. And once I started getting selfish and claiming that time and connecting with that place within myself that I knew I was worthy and finding my joy, that's when it all changed for me. The trajectory of my stress completely shifted. Right now, the American Psychological Association says that in teenagers in high school, their number one health concern is the amount of stress that they're under. And that if they don't find healthy ways of dealing with that stress now, there'll be serious long-term impacts for them in the future. I can't think of a better example to set for the next generation than for us to be selfish, for us to find our joy and connect with our joy. Because what we're doing right now isn't working. 80% of all employees are experiencing stress. Really? That doesn't make any sense. We are not here to experience stress. Have you ever tried to connect with somebody? To have a conversation, to be there with somebody when you are feeling extreme amounts of stress? We can't do it. Where is the connection that we can have with each other when we're experiencing that stress? It doesn't exist. I believe we need to get selfish. We need to find that place within ourselves where we can experience joy. And you might be thinking, okay, how can we do that? My joy is sunsets. Yours might be something different. Yours might be dancing naked in the middle of your living room. Maybe yours is knitting. I think some of you might have a secret knitting passion that you really want to get in touch with. But you have to find yours. There is study after study that's done on spending time in nature, on the benefits of yoga, on the benefits of meditating, of laughter, of exercise. And the common thread throughout each one of these is that with 20 minutes of inspired action, there is a significant and measurable reduction of stress. We know this. This isn't new. So why are we doing nothing about it? Why are we letting the stress win? It is simple, but we are continually listening to that voice in our heads. We're listening to that voice that continually says, well, I don't have time. Somebody else might be able to do that, but that's not okay for me. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You can't do that. We need to stop listening to that voice. Some people call that voice ego. Some people call that voice the lizard. Some people call it listening to the ducks. It's just that voice that just sits there. And we need to get selfish. For those of you who are leaders, who are thought leaders, change agents, or innovators, which is all of you here watching, it is up to you to reframe what selfish means. Because until you do, you are not going to have that impact in this world that you deserve. You're not going to have the connections with other people that you're meant to have, and you're not going to have the relationships that you yearn to have. It's not until you get selfish. And what's beautiful about it is we all have a choice. We can choose to be selfish or we can choose to stay in that stress. You can choose to be one of those 50% of people who are in that stress, or you can choose to get selfish, to find that place, to find your joy, to reduce that negative talk in your head. You get to choose. My question for you today is, what do you choose? I hope you choose joy. Thank you.